Okay, so do you want the sharpest large or relatively large refractor that money can buy? I have it here. Ugh, it is heavy. It is the Askar SQA106. If you're a frequent watcher of the channel, you know that I have been extremely impressed with the SQA series by Askar, starting with the small one, the SQA55 that I have behind me. I've also tested the SQA85, which is excellent while being expensive. And now we have like the big brother, the SQA106, and I'm hoping to see pretty much the same insane sharpness and optical quality as I've seen in both SQA55 and SQA85. But first, let's look at what's in the box and what the specifications of this telescope are, as well, of course, as the price. Okay, so this is actually the first time that I'm opening the box. As usual, we have a nice carry case that is considerably fatter than what I'm used to. Like the height of the case is actually as much as the width or depth, I don't know how you would call it, of the case itself. So it's a very chunky little case to really protect your investment. And it is an investment indeed, because this telescope, which has an aperture of 106 millimeters, can support full frame, but also apparently medium format cameras. It has insanely sharp optics according to their MTF curves and their spot diagrams, as well as my previous experience with SQA series telescope, and a focal length of 509 millimeter for a focal ratio of f4.8. This telescope costs $3,395 US. At least as of now. I have no idea what the price is going to be in a few weeks after, at least for the United States, because of all of this tariff situation that's going on. So let me take it out of this box. And actually the box is the box, I'm going to show you the box in a moment because it's actually smart. I like what I'm seeing in the box. So I'm going to put that aside for a moment. It is heavy, much heavier than I expected. I think the total weight with the ring, etc., is 8.9 kilograms, 9 kilograms even. And I wanted to show you the inside of the box because we have a little section here with various camera adapters. So this is M68. This is M54, which is what I'll be using for these tests. And on the telescope by default is installed M48 together with the dust cap for M48. Unfortunately, we do not have dust caps for the other sizes, which was the complaint I had as well with the SQA85. Come on, Askar. You can provide dust caps for all sizes at that price. I'm sure you can. So I'm going to keep the 54 aside because we're going to use it. Also, one thing I really like to see is that there is a cutout for if you've installed a ZWEF or a similar focuser on the telescope. You can still put it in the case by removing this little thing here, and I like that. This is good thinking. I like that it's there, and it's very convenient because otherwise it's like you've put your electronic focuser, but it's like you cannot use the case anymore, or you have to destroy the case to make it work. It's just a bit of a quandary. With that, we don't have the quandary. Small detail, but it's still nice to see. Okay, now, oh my gosh, it is heavy. For this little thing, I need to remove the telescope from the rings first. So let's do that while having a little bit of a workout for my right arm. I'm going to try not to make the telescope full because that would be a bit dodgy. I'm not sure Askar would appreciate it. This telescope is on loan by Askar, by the way. I will have to return it to them at the end. They're not like giving me $3,400 like that. Would be nice, Askar. If you want to give me this scope, I'm sure I'll be fine with it. Yeah, I'm not getting paid for this review or anything like that. This is all my thoughts, and Askar has no say in what I say about this telescope. So let's remove the plastic and see. Oh my, what a beauty. So what we have here is the raw telescope without the rings for now. It's actually much lighter without the rings. And we can see exactly what I'm expecting to see based on the SQA85. This is basically really the big brother of the SQA85. If you've watched my video about the SQA85, this is the same thing, but larger. So we have a dual speed focuser that is, as expected, nice and smooth. Oh yeah, oh I like that. I don't know about you, but I like playing with focusers, especially when they're so smooth. Oof. The focuser on the SQA85 was excellent. It held focus perfectly. It has just the right amount of tension, and this is exactly what I can feel here already on this telescope. We also have the M48 adapter at the back, and we can see that we have a screw here for a rotating mechanism to rotate the entire part here of the telescope, so you can achieve whatever angle of your camera that you wish to have. We also have the dust cap only for M48, and you can remove the entire M48 adapter like this, although if you're not careful, you're going to be unscrewing the whole back end of the telescope. So yeah, be careful about that. M48, it's gone, and we can look inside. The lens is immediately at the edge, like really at the flange of the telescope. So there is no space to put any filter within here. You have to put a filter between the telescope and the camera when you want to use a filter. I'm going to place this back so I don't spit all over the lens. And as usual, by the way, for the focuser, you'll be able to put an EF, you'll be able to put anything you like on there. This is a very standard focuser, and again, it is smooth. And yes, what do we see here? We have two guider dovetail plates for two guiders. You could have like one ZWEF here, for instance, and one guider there, or whatever accessories you like. It's always appreciated, so that's nice to have. And let's look at the front. What do we have? We have the dew shield with a holding screw for the dew shield that you can extend. And now it's fully extended, so this is the whole telescope with the dew shield fully extended. And I'm going to remove the dust cap. It's nice and snug. Boop. There we go. I haven't looked at the optics yet, so you get first dips. Here you go. Here are the optics of the SQA106. I can kind of see them on the screen on my camera, but I have not looked at them directly yet. Here they are. I think they're beautiful. I'm probably sure yes, they are beautiful. So the design of this telescope, by the way, it's a quintuplet astrograph, and it has good glass. It's very heavy. It feels like the whole tube is filled with glass for whatever reason. And as I said, it is relatively fast at f4.8, 106 millimeters aperture, and 509 millimeters focal length. This is a great kind of telescope for jack of all trades. It will pair excellently with APS-C size sensors, or if you want to do galaxy work, it's great with something like a 585 sensor. We'll have a look at the field of views a bit later on in the video. For now, let me close that off, and we can have a look at the ring itself. So the rings, they're exactly as we saw. You can remove them manually very easily. It's like kind of a lever system that you put on top. And the default dovetail plate is Losmandy style. So you don't have a Vixen style plate by default. Even removing the Losmandy style dove plate, there's nothing. You are able to remove the Losmandy style dove plate and put a Vixen style dovetail instead, yeah, you need to provide your own if you do so, and because of the weight of the telescope, I'm pretty sure there's a good reason why Askar decided to go with Losmandy type, or if you're in the Celestron world, that would be CGEM, I guess. Yeah, I think. I'm not sure. I'm never sure. DX, CGX, maybe CGX type, like the larger of the two. Always forget what it is. Anyway, let me put the rings back on the telescope, and this is what we get. Now it's really, really heavy with the rings on, and by the way, we have a third rail that we can put like something else in. So I could have, I don't know, ASI air, a guider, and a coffee maker at the top of the telescope. I don't know. Too many adapters. There, you can never have too many guider style dovetail saddles. So there we go. That's good to have. Okay, so next step, let me install it on my Skywatcher Wave 150i behind me with the nice half pillar. It's also resting on a metal tripod from Skywatcher as well. So it's like one of my most stable pieces of equipment. Ugh. And this is how it looks like, and it is a thing of beauty if I say so myself. So now we can go into how I am going to be testing this. Well, if you've seen my other videos about refracting telescopes or general telescopes reviews, you'll know exactly what I'll do. I'll be first using the ZW ASI 2600 MC Air. This is a color APS-C size format camera with an integrated guide chip and an integrated ASI Air to control everything. I will be focusing the telescope via Bahtinov mask using this adjustable Bahtinov mask that Luke from the Lukomatico channel sells. I'll put the link down in the description if you're interested. So boop, I'll be able to plop it on. Works with pretty much any telescope you have. Then I will be taking 60-second exposures of 1 minute each, and I will be taking 60 of those exposures for a full hour of data. Then I stack that. That gives us a very good idea of any chromatic aberration that this telescope may have across the field of view of the APS-C size sensor. And as the follow-up step, I'll be taking this camera here, which is a Toptech SkyEye 24 AC camera, and that one is, once I remove the UV IR cut filter, it's a full frame camera, so it has a massive full frame sensor inside, and that's the second camera that I'll be testing with, using the exact same method. That way we can see how the stars perform on a full frame sensor. Note that unfortunately the pixels on this camera are slightly large. I think they're like 5.9 microns in terms of pixel pitch compared to 3.8 microns on this one, which means that star aberrations may not be as visible on this camera as they would be with something like an ASI 6200 MC camera. So just bear that in mind. It's still a very respectable test to do for full frame. So let me put this ZW camera on so that we are ready to do our tests on a star field to look at the results of the test. I'll also find some targets if the weather allows. The weather in Tokyo has been terrible these days, but if the weather allows, I'll find some target and of course take a longer exposure image of that target just so that we can have fun and look at the results that can be achieved with this telescope. So let's install this. And to do so, I need to use the M54 adapter that came with the telescope. I removed the M54 adapter with the only dust cap that we have for the rear. Come on, Askar, give us the dust caps for M54 and M68, pretty please. And now, I'm fully ready to image with the 2600 MC Air with the adapters that I have to achieve exactly 55 millimeters of back focus. Although, because this is a Petzval design, doesn't really matter that much. The range of distance from the back of the telescope, from the flange to the camera sensor, can be anything from 48 millimeters to 78 millimeters. And that's because the full range of travel of the focuser, I haven't checked it yet, but it's going to be 3 centimeters. Let's double check. Yep. 3 centimeters. What did I tell you? I'm such a genius. Yeah, so it's a Petzval design. As long as the sensor goes into focus, you're good. But the limited travel of the focuser itself, only 3 centimeters, basically says that that range is only 3 centimeters long. In our case, between 48 and 78 millimeters, with a little bit of leeway depending on which filter you are using, the filter thickness, as well as the whatever the name of that number that you use in Schnell's law, the number that basically characterizes the speed of the light through that particular glass medium of your filter. Let's not get into it. So I'm just gonna put the camera on. And because I know that the focal range is between 48 millimeters and 78 millimeters, and I have 55 millimeters of back focus distance, math tells me that on the focuser gradation, which has gradations, of course, for length as well as the rotation angle, as usual, it's a beautiful little focuser, but I should put, since the maximum draw is 3 centimeters, it should be in focus at roughly 2.3 centimeters. Let's see if I'm right. I'll put it there. I'll let you know if I was right or not. It could be the inverse, but it's fun to see. Anyway, let me do that, and then I will do the tests at night to see exactly what we can get with this telescope. Is the optical quality worth the price of entry for getting this beautiful piece of kit? Let's have a look inside once I have the results through the magic of editing. But first. If you want to help me do these videos to support the channel, you can like the video. It really helps the channel out. And let me know what you think of this telescope, of the price of this telescope, what alternatives you would see, for instance, like red cats, anyone? Let us know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Always love your comments. And if you want to support the channel even more and you're planning on buying anything from Agena, High Point Scientific, First Light Optics, even Amazon for that matter, if you do so after clicking one of the links I have down in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. If you want to sponsor the channel directly to make all of my work possible, because yes, it is a lot of work, then you can become a direct sponsor by becoming a channel member. It's the join button next to the subscribe button. Or you can become a Patreon supporter. The link to Patreon is down in the description. Some of my Patreons have access to my videos early and without ads. And you guys, members, Patreon supporters, you know it, you make this channel possible. Okay, with that, let me do the tests. Let's go inside and have a look at the results of those tests. Okay, and we're inside where we can look at the results of the test that I have. I wanted to do a bit more tests than I ended up doing, but I took a bit of a tumble and I am therefore not allowed to lift anything even slightly heavy for the next few months. So I had to kind of interrupt my testing, but we do have a lot of data on the 106 that I'll present in a moment. Before that, I want to go through very quickly the spot diagram. The spot diagram is basically like if you had no atmosphere and no diffraction and a perfectly manufactured telescope, then the star shapes would look like what you see in the spot diagram. And we can see that the spot diagram gives you the star shapes all the way to 27.5 millimeters from the center of the optical axis. So this would be the center. This is 3 millimeters from the center, 7 millimeters from the center, etc., until 27.5 millimeters from the center. And you would be able to see that with a medium format sensor, which I do not own because they're extremely expensive, that would give you an insane field of view. And for most people, what's interesting is all the way to 21 millimeters, because that's more corresponding towards a full frame type of sensor. And it's very interesting to see that the star shapes are tiny throughout the field of view. At the edge of, at the corner even, of a medium-sized format sensor, it's still quite tiny and somehow looks better than at the corner of a full-frame sensor, where you can see the star is more elongated into a comet type of shape. And we can see that the RMS radius of the star point is 1.65 microns at the center. I'm not sure why they say 1.65 here, and then here it's like 1.62, but whatever. And then there's 2.2 microns at the edge in the corner. They don't say the corner of which sensor size, but I'm going to estimate it's the medium format, so we are at 2.1. And if we compare that to something like the SQA85, which has a 408 millimeter focal length, not so far away from the 509 focal length of the SQA106. But if we look at the SQA85, we see something actually very, very similar, where we have at the center an RMS radius of less than 1.6 microns, so even better in theory than the SQA106. And at the corner of full frame, not of medium, but of full frame, 2.5 microns, which we can see here as well. But the star shape, when I look at full frame, so 22 millimeters away from the center, in theory, on the SQA85, it looks rounder than it does on the SQA106. So this is something that kind of I wanted to have a look at to see whether we could see something like that in the results. And something to keep in mind as well is that the SQA85, with its 408 millimeter of aperture, is $1,000 less than the SQA106, which is $3,400 versus $2,400, at least, you know, tariffs set aside. So that is something to keep in mind. And another thing to keep in mind, by the way, this is like as an aside, I can't really show you because I'm not able to get the cover of the telescope to show you a picture. But there's one thing that is kind of weird. The dust cap on the SQA106 is kind of a metallized finish with the letters on top, and the dust cap of the 85 is like a matte or like shiny, glossy, I guess, dark finish. And so it's a small difference, and you might be wondering, like, Quiv, why are you pointing this out? I'm pointing this out because after a few weeks under my protective cover, and both the SQA85 and the SQA106 spent a few weeks behind that cover, but for me, after a few weeks, the SQA106 lettering there on the front cap is gone. Like it got rubbed away maybe by wind against the cover, against the dust cap. I don't know, but those letters, they're no longer in the cover anymore. Whereas the SQA85 seemed to be immune to that. So small things to keep in mind. Maybe you want to cover this with some, like, I don't know, saran wrap to protect those letters if you are going to keep the telescope outside all of the time under something like a barbecue cover or a Telegizmo 365 cover, which is what I'm using. Just something to keep in mind. Anyway, going back to the SQA106, I want to give you a little idea of the field of views that we would be expecting. We have here a full frame field of view with the yellow area here. We have APS-C size format field of view, and then we have a tiny ASI 585 sensor. So this is, my favorite kind of sensor these days, which gives us the center of the galaxy. So this gives us a good idea of what is being, covered by each sensor size on such a large target. And you can see that, especially if you go with full frame, you can still cover the entirety of M31 without breaking a sweat. And we get something like, I believe, 1.18 arc pixels per second on the tiniest pixels of the 585 sensor, and on the larger pixels of the 2600 mm or the 533 mm. Then we get, I believe, or the 6200 mm, we get 1.52 arc seconds per pixel. So it's a nice level of sampling in a lot of locations overall. If you go with larger pixels, like the 5.9 micron pixels on the 2400 mm or on the TopeTech SkyEye 24AC that I used for the tests of full frame, then you go to 2.41 arc seconds per pixel. So you'll definitely be undersampled in that case. And to give you an idea of what it looks like on a tiny target like M51 as a galaxy, you can see that full frame and APS-C size format, they're wasted on M51, but the 585 sensor would be a very good fit for small galaxies. I wanted to test that, but unfortunately I was not able to test that before my little tumble. I'm unable to show you the result of the 585 sensor, but you'll see that the results still look pretty good on APS-C and full frame that I did test. I tested with the 2600 MC Air here, and I also tested with the SkyEye 24AC. So let's have a look at those test results, shall we? Okay, so those test results, we can see them on the screen here. This is with the APS-C size sensor, so with this camera on the SQA106. And intentionally, I did not do any calibration frames, including flat frames. So if you see like those weird circles there, they're just dust motes. Probably this one is on the filter. And if you see smaller ones, darker ones, they're probably on the sensor window itself, but you can just feel free to ignore them. And we have a nice star field. This is a stack of 60 1-minute exposures for a total of 1 hour of stacking with the SQA106. And we can do some pixel peeping, right? So if I zoom in to the main star, we can see that it looks pretty nice overall. Although we have some weird kind of artifacts, especially here, like almost like horns going to the left-hand side of the star, and also the bottom right star of the star to some lesser extent. But that's on a very bright star. The less bright stars, they look perfectly fine right at the center of the field, as we would expect, except that, and this is something that I saw very consistently with my sample of the scope, if you zoom in, if you really pixel peep, it appears to me that we have a slight, kind of ovoid shape towards the left-hand side of the star here. This is something that I double-checked by taking images with another mount and by also rotating the sensor, and this was fairly consistent, and I feel it probably correlates with those two kind of horns going out of the main bright stars here. And if we look at this star as well, you can see it's slightly visible. And this star as well is slightly visible. So I think it's like visible throughout the field of view, and it feels like this is something that is probably unique to my particular sample of the telescope. But besides that, and because you're never going to zoom in that much, if you look at the entire image, even if you look at a pretty close crop of the image, the stars look pretty nice. We can go into the corners to have a look at what they look like in the corners, and you can see the little blob on the left hand side is still visible in the corners, but otherwise in the corner of APS-C the image looks perfectly fine. I do see on this particular star a little bit of chroma with the blue side towards the inside and the red side towards the outside, but overall, even on this one, but overall it looks pretty well, very well corrected, exactly as I've come to expect from the SQS series, right? If we go to the bottom left corner, we see the same story, and I get the feeling that I see like this star is a little bit squashed, right? Whereas the less bright stars are less squashed. I'm not sure exactly what's the deal here, but we still get some very, very good results in the corners of APS-C here. And it looks very sharp overall. And what is interesting is that if I take a monochrome version of that image, so if I just take the luminance, I can use that to compute the FWHM, which is basically the average star size across the image. And I should be able to do that via this FWHM eccentricity. And in terms of the results, we can see a median FWHM of 1.92 pixels. So I'm not showing you that for the fun of it, because I've also still have the results from APS-C on the SQA85. This is the result on SQA85 on a similar star field. So let's open that up and have it in black and white and run the same script. So we can see that the medium FWHM on the SQA85 is 1.61 pixels. But we cannot compare the WHM in pixels from one to the other. We need to normalize them together. The way to do that is that I'll simply take this 1.6012, so I can open up a calculator, say 1.612 multiplied by the focal length of the 106 divided by the focal length of the 85, and now that gives me 2.01, and that's more or less directly comparable to the result that we saw earlier of 1.92, right? So 1.92 across the whole image for the 106 versus in it's not in pixels anymore. It's kind of like a hybrid unit, just something to compare versus 2. So the SQA85 is only performing very slightly worse than the SQA106. Remember that, because I'll come back to that later. But yeah, so we see that the results are very good on APS-C. What about on full frame? So full frame, I also have that. And you can see this is the result with the full frame sensor. And the first thing that I see when I look at this image is that there's those weird rings there, and they are caused by my filter drawer / my luminance filter. When I remove the luminance filter, those are completely gone, and they're also gone via flat frames. So it's not a big deal. So please, you can ignore those rings. They are not due to the 106 optics. You can also ignore the donuts there. Those larger ones, again, they're probably due to some dust on the filter, and the tiny one here is dust on the sensor window itself. Please feel free to completely ignore them. And we have here as well 60 exposures of 1 minute on M13 globular cluster. I absolutely took inspiration from Luc on the Lucomatico channel, who also did a full review of the SQA106. So if you haven't watched it, I'll put the link up above and down in the description, because I think it's a very interesting review, and it's good to have multiple opinions on this. And while the pixels on the 2024 AC camera that I used are larger, we can still feel through those pixels that the star shapes are incredible. Like, a lot of those stars are basically just 1 pixel, and the bearing gives us multiple pixels effectively, and we can see an insane amount of details despite the very large arc seconds per pixel of 2.41. It's a lot of detail within M13, but you can see like at the center of the field of view, the image looks great. Although, if we look at this star here, we can see again on the left-hand side a little bit of like a spur coming out of the star, and I made sure to have the same sensor orientation between this one and the 24AC just to see whether we would see the same thing in the same direction, and we do. So it's possible that my particular sample of the 106 has a slight issue in terms of the quality, and we can even see it here on those small stars, but then we see something on the right as well, so I'm not sure exactly. But let's look at the corners of full frame, and in the corners of full frame I can see perfectly good star shapes again. So this is looking very, very nice, very sharp stars in the corner of full frame. There's no issue whatsoever. We can look at the bottom right of the telescope full frame, and again, like no issues whatsoever. Bottom left, no issues. Again, we can see chroma is a bit visible on the stars, but again, it looks very, very nice. Although it is to be noted that some issues will be hidden by the large pixel size that we have on this particular full frame sensor. But we are pixel peeping anyway, so you would not do that in normal times. And again, we can see some of the brightest stars there kind of appearing squashed to some extent, but otherwise it's perfectly good image on full frame. So it looks really, really good, no issues whatsoever. And what we can do as well is on full frame, look, I'm going to take a monochrome version of that image. There we go. And now I'm going to look at the numbers that will appear on the bottom here of the screen. And towards the center of the frame, where there are no stars, you can see that the K value is roughly 0.1343, right? So this is the brightness value around my cursor, 1343. And at the corner, the darkest corner in the image, we are at 1139. So if I do 1139 divided by 1343, we can basically say that the corner of full frame in the worst case has roughly 85% of the illumination as the center. Sorry. So this is a perfectly good result, honestly. No problem whatsoever on this star cluster here. And so I don't see really any big issues with that telescope besides that little, for me at least, little horn on the left-hand side. My guess is that if you had this kind of issue, if you took it out for a spin and you told Askar that you get this issue, Askar would probably give you the opportunity for a refund or an exchange, because for $3,400, it is a big investment. But besides that, the optics look pristine on this telescope, right? So we're getting an absolutely beast of a telescope. It's a beautiful design. Everything is amazing about it, but it is very, very expensive. So like not to give too many spoilers, but Luke from Lukomatico was saying like basically perfection has a price, and I tend to agree with him. This is something close to perfection that has a very high price tag. But then remember those very similar FWHM numbers earlier? Basically, we have exactly the same kind of like FWHM, or like we didn't do FWHM in arc seconds. We just did it in like equivalent pixel units, whatever you want to call that. But it was very similar between the SQA85 and the SQA106. That was very interesting to me. And when I go back to the results of the SQA85, so this is what I have on screen right now, I was also flabbergasted, absolutely in awe of the sharpness that we got from this telescope. And it seemed to me that this telescope was touching above its aperture size, if that makes any sense. That it was the sharpest I've ever seen in an 85mm aperture. Like it can rival telescopes that have a larger aperture simply by virtue of being so freaking sharp. And the SQA106 is also extremely sharp for its aperture, but it impressed me in that the wow factor on the 106 was less strong, at least for me, than it was with the 85. And the 85 is $1,000 cheaper. It gives you a similar FWHM, roughly, like seeing conditions notwithstanding. In theory, actually, the SQA85 was suffering from worse seeing than the 106 did during the tests due to the season that we were in Japan. And if we go back to our field of view stuff, I've just given you this is the SQA106 kind of telescope, and we're going to ignore everything except the Dawes limit. This is basically the resolution limit of your optics. It is 1.1 arc seconds in terms of the limit of after which the airy disks of two stars close to one another start to merge effectively. And on the 106 it is 1.1. On the 85 it is 1.36. So it's again very, very close. And 1.36 is actually something that makes sense for the 85. If I've put the 585 MC Pro on the 85, you can see it has a resolution that is actually higher, which is good, than the Dawes limit. We could go all the way down to half the Dawes limit to really sample properly. But basically what this tells me, and this is where I'm kind of going kind of on a tangent, but I feel like the SQA85 is just as good of a telescope as the SQA106 is, for $1,000 cheaper, and it is more compact, smaller, lighter. And if you were to ask me okay, you have $3,000 to spend, do you buy an SQA106 or do you buy an SQA55 and an SQA85? I would do the latter. The SQA55, as I've shown in my review, it's a no-brainer. Complete no-brainer if you have the $800-900 to buy it. It is the sharpest small telescope that I've seen, at least at the 55mm type of size. And then, if you have the 85, you can get a focal length that is 408mm, which is a decent wide field type of focal length. It's very close to the 509mm of the SQA106, and the sharpness of the 85 is not quite as good as that of the 106, but it is close. And at least with the sensors that we have available right now, the 585 sensor should give very, very similar results between the 106 and the 85 as far as I can tell, simply because the 85 has a sharpness that is absolutely insane for its aperture. And so I'm not sure whether the additional focal length that you get out of the 106, although it has at the same time a larger aperture and therefore a focal ratio that is the same between the two scopes, is that larger aperture actually worth it? I'm not sure. Let me know down in the comments what you think of that, because right now my recommendation would be unless you have a specific reason to prefer the 106, personally I'd probably go for the 85 instead, because I like smaller, lighter rigs. They're less painful to deal with. I don't know. It's just my personal preference and what I would overall recommend, even if it's probably not what Askar wants me to say. So yeah, just the 106 is absolutely an excellent scope, but it is expensive. And so here we are. That's kind of where I'm coming from, and this might be a bit controversial. So please let me know your thoughts again down in the comments while you're going there. Please like this video. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to support the channel even more and you're planning on buying anything, even if it's not about astrophotography, from Amazon, Agena, High Point Scientific, First Light Optics, etc., if you do so after clicking one of the links down in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. And if you want to support me directly, to really sponsor those videos directly, you can become a channel member. This is a join button next to the subscribe button, or you can become a Patreon supporter. The link to my Patreon is down in the description or the pinned comment. Some ranks of my Patreons have access to my videos early and without ads. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting to see. A very, very good telescope, perfection has a price, effectively. But I think there's a good alternative, and that alternative is the SQA85. It's also Askar. Yeah, but I don't know. I'll be very interested to know your thoughts down in the comments. Anyway, with that, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget whenever you can to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.